what's up, guys? Welcome back to WeMigreat. Today we have Reshma with us. I am very, very happy to have her on the channel. I can safely say that she's one of my very, very best friends who I've met in our very first startup when we were working together. And today, Reshma will be sharing her insights on working with startup companies as she has been with 10 different companies for the past 10 years.
Thank you, Janelle. My name is Reshma, and I am born and raised in Kuala Lumpur, but currently obviously residing in Singapore. So I'm back where Janelle was born. Happy to be here, obviously. I'm going to be sharing a lot more about Singapore and other places that I lived in as well. But as Janelle mentioned, I've worked in multiple startups and bigger companies as well. So the roles that I have been involved in are very user-centric. So building communities, we're talking about marketing, customer success, a little bit about sales, and so on and so forth. So today, I think I just want to share a few thoughts on my various experiences across 3 different countries.
So can you share with us a little bit more about your reasons for jumping ship so quickly? Like on average, you do one job in a year, right? And then you jump to the next one.
I think it may sound a bit bizarre to many. I think I've shared my story with a lot of friends and family as well. And it's very interesting because whenever I get a call from my family and they're like, oh, hey, you're working in X company. And then I'm like, oh, no, actually, I left the company. I'm working for something else now, right? So I think that the word jump ship that you use obviously resonates with me. Again, a lot of people use it negatively. And I want to look at it as positively. And that's what we're doing this particular session for, right, today. So jump ship particularly is definitely not my choice, right? It's not my first choice. It's not the choice that I'm taking for myself, right? It just happens to be what it is, right? But do know that it's not a regrettable decision on my side, right? So today, I think upon looking back at my journey, I'm very, very proud of where I am. But at that time, if you would have asked me again, year on year, is it a scary experience to be jump shipping? Yes, right? Definitely yes. But now let's talk about why did I jump ship, right? Or why do other people just in general jump ship, right? Because honestly, a lot of companies, some of the companies do close down, right? Due to lack of funding. Some of the companies actually have business models that may not necessarily have worked, and then they decide to pivot, but still it's not working out for them, right? Next, we're also talking about certain companies closing down in just certain countries, right? So meaning when they start up, they kind of start like, hey, why not let's start with Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. And then they slowly move to like Hong Kong, Taiwan, come with different countries like Thailand and stuff. But then maybe they realize that one of the countries or two of the countries may not be working out. And that might be affecting their particular business model. So then they realize that, okay, maybe I need to close that particular region. And maybe that's how I also kind of got affected with it. And lastly, obviously with my role building communities, doing a lot of marketing, a lot of customer support and sales, some companies do decide to lay off companies during reorgs. And that's where marketing and salespeople do get affected first compared to maybe product and engineering. So I think I'm just sharing a few different examples of the reasons of why I may have jumped ship. But there are a lot more, right? Again, we go back to the founder story. You go back about maybe misalign again in terms of where they see the brand going to, maybe where I see the brand going, and so on and so forth. So these are just a few factors or circumstances that I have on my side for reason for jump shipping. Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that. So, Reshma, some people may think that a year in a company is a short time because obviously you need some time to get settled in a company before you start making contributions, right? So, do you think that you have made enough contributions in that 1 year before jumping?
That's a nice way to put it. Have I contributed enough before jumping? I want to say for sure, no questions about it. I think with every startup, things are moving so fast. Every month actually counts, right? And I also tend to join companies at such an early stage that there's so much to be done, right? In Chinese, we call it a pao kao liao, or because it's a Hokkien dialect, and it means doing everything and covering all roles, right? So what I mean by this is basically I actually help, from the simplest of tasks like office hunting, to setting up the office, to meeting our first prospective user, to product improvement, to just many other different things, right? And also, I want to add in here as well. I may not encourage jumping ships too fast, but if need be, there's no regrets about it, right? Take it as it's a learning curve. Take it as the struggles are always on the horizon. Take it as it gives you a new perspective, and this is the perspective that actually kind of builds you as a person. And that's something that I'm constantly proud of. Yeah.
Definitely. Cool. Out of the startups you were with, was there any startups that you knew that was definitely not going to work, and why?
So the sensational topic is already here. The questions are already here. Without naming names, don't want to go into too much details as well. But I think I definitely kind of had a tingling feeling in terms of two companies that I work for or helped build were definitely not going to work out, right? So my reasons for this opinion is because I think they were very competing in a very saturated market, and this can be a deal breaker. We were also making a very late entry into the industry, into the different industries that we wanted to penetrate, right? Obviously, a lot of other competitors were already ahead of the game. And sometimes familiarity actually helps on the user's end, right? So if I'm already using a brand in a certain way, I may not necessarily want to kind of move to using another brand if they don't bring a different USP, unique selling point to the particular product.
Mm.
But again, I'm going to kind of put it on a different perspective. However, do know that actually some late entries today can also win the race, right? Because every USP actually differs. The founder's thought process actually helps with bring a different dimension. Initial user adoption is very, very important and very strong. And agility of the team and how we can actually kind of move along with the changes. These are few things that actually can make an impact. Okay. I think I want to add as well that with a startup as well, right? Funding also makes a difference. A lot of founders either come with a huge backing or may not necessarily have a huge backing. But let's talk about the perspective when they actually have a huge backing, right?
Mm.
It means the startup can actually make a difference, and they can actually be at the highest starting point, right? Let's put it a higher starting point. The reason for why I say this is because when you're talking about early adoption with users, right, the money actually comes into play, right? So what kind of advertising you're looking into, what are the kind of promos that you're giving to your users, what is your early adoption process or campaign that you're talking about that makes a difference. So these are different things that the money can actually give you that extra edge. So obviously startups with a bigger backing can kind of penetrate different markets. Next, another thing that a company with backing helps is basically you can penetrate a few markets at the same time, and that actually kind of gives you a good wave, right? So imagine just starting off in just Singapore, and maybe people might not know about you, but imagine starting off with Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia. This is literally the triangle that people start off with, and that gives you a bigger wave, right? So a lot more users know you straight away. You can open up in so many more cities at the same time. And I think just this few steps actually kind of give you a different kind of trajectory or like a different push altogether that a startup actually needs. Yeah.
Mhm. And going back to the point about having a bigger marketing budget to reach your initial customers, right? I'm pretty sure there is a difference in the way we try to attract the initial customers. Like maybe 10 years ago, it might be enough, just giving a few freebies and stuff like that, right? But then 10 years later, people are not dumb, right? They are more practical and more pragmatic. What sort of trends did you see that have changed over the past 10 years in terms of like marketing efforts?
Right. A very good question on that. I think you rightfully said, with 10 years ago, it was as simple as standing on the pavement roads and just kind of like giving out flyers, kind of catching the lunch crowd at the CBD, Central Business District areas and stuff like
Mm.
that. But today, 10 years later, we're actually talking about advertising, right? We're talking about, Spotify ads, you're talking about actually getting on TikTok, you're getting on Instagram story. This is where the crowd is. This is where the young people
Mm.
are at, right? So you're trying to pull them all together. Obviously, we're talking about, example, Southeast Asia penetration, 80% is covered by the younger generation, right? And these are the people that we want to be downloading or using the products that we are creating. So therefore, things are definitely changing. You have to make it more fun. You have to make it more creative. Your budgets have to be bigger. So we're
Yeah.
giving out bigger gifts as well. Your promo codes have to be more interesting. You can't do that $10 and $5 off anymore. Nobody's going to come for that, right? We're talking about things like building tiers, right? So example, if you spend 150, you get this much off. You spend 200, you get this much off. You bill 250 and you get this much off. So this kind of tier system or tier campaigns are actually the pull factor for a lot of users, right? And then
Mhm.
we're talking about promo codes according to different festivals. Again, now veganism is a big thing, or cruelty free. So you come up with a campaign that kind of matches that.
Yep.
Sustainability is a big topic as
Yep.
well. So
Mm.
somehow kind of I would like to say mesh what your product or platform is with this kind of new and in topics that actually kind of attract users, right? What are users looking out for? So how do you penetrate that group of people yet not piss that group of people as well? So yeah.
Yeah, that is a very, very good point because young people, millennials nowadays, care a lot about different things than 10 years ago. And it's so important for startups or even any company, big corporates, to adapt. And you don't adapt, then you're gone. So which was the most promising startup that you worked in that you wish that you have stayed on?
Right. I want to say without a doubt, I would say it was Carousell. So Carousell is a Singapore-based company, and that's also where I met Janelle. She was a baby back then. I was a baby back then
Yeah,
as
we're
well.
very big then.
Yeah, we were really babies back then. That was definitely, I think, the first for both of us. Yeah, first
Yeah.
company, first startup for both of us. Yeah, and that is where we started our journey, and here we are today. But why I chose that company is because I think till date, right, I hold a very special place in my heart for them, and I always talk very highly about the three founders that I met. Right, these three young guys basically.
You wanted to say dude.
No, these three young guys basically founded the company with very little experience in all three of them. And all they did was they went to Silicon Valley under the NOC program. And then they, obviously worked with I think two startups over there, did a bit of an internship, and then they came back to Singapore to kind of build the brand Carousell. But now let's talk about the culture that they brought, right? Obviously today the company, a few years later, they are at a valuation of 1 billion. But that is not what I want to talk about, right? I want to talk about the culture because that is what resonates with me. They actually taught me the real reason of being a family within a startup. They obviously taught me how to connect with my users and put users first. I think until today, if you do use Carousell, you would know that is their branding, and that is what they constantly work and strive upon. And also, lastly, I think at that time a lot more tougher days, but I still saw a lot of value in it, right?
Mm.
I was kind of with them on this journey. They made sure that there's a lot of transparency within the company as well. They made sure that we were always informed about where we're going,
Yeah.
what our numbers were like, so a lot of like weekly huddles that were happening. We obviously had our Fridays, which were lunches. And despite me working remotely, I still felt that family feeling within the company. Um, and I think because of what they taught me and being very users first, that actually built my personal passion in terms of going more into community,
Mm.
going more into like customer support, going more into like users first. Um, and 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 because I saw the value that we brought in every single user that we adopted then in
Mm.
2012, and now I still see the value until today of every user that I actually talk to and make an impact, right? That thank you note that comes after that, or like, hey, you actually made a difference today. it may be one or two and it's not scalable at the, when we're talking about, kind of penetrating into a market, but those are small baby validations that all of us definitely need in a startup. Yeah.
Mm. I totally agree with Reshma because people always say that your first company is the most important one. Like it it sort of has like the biggest influence as to how you're going to approach a certain thing in the future, right? And I think Carousel was really a really good ground for us to learn, especially with the three founders. They were highly intelligent, but at the same time, they were so humble. Even until today, it's the same for me. Like Carousel still leaves a really important place in my heart. And I would say that very safely that is one of the most enjoyable place to work in. Yeah. As Reshma also said that she was working remotely in Malaysia, but she still feels belong, to the Singapore office.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, cool. So then, so Reshma, like, what is your next plan? Like, have you thought of
Um,
it or?
I honestly, I think every day is a new day. Every year is a new year for me. But obviously, I mean, I think everyone personally has kind of like a goal that we're working towards. We're not just like mindlessly kind of like, go, 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 go kind of thing.
Mm,
So I think for me is I've been building communities and brands, at a small scale, very, very small scale for a while now, right? Across multiple platforms as well as roles. But I definitely see my passion lying within our customers today or users in general, right? And also another place that I also see myself going into is product management.
mm,
Very two extremes for sure. You may be like, customers and product, two extremes, right? But something which is very similar for both of them is users first. We're talking about user focus. I love talking to people. I love hearing their perspective. I love seeing the way they actually utilize the product that the team has created. Simple things like seeing my mom click on buttons or my dad clicking on buttons and scrolling different apps and like, hey, where do I find this? How do I do this? Those kind of things just kind of intrigue me.
mm,
I also like the fact that when I teach them something new and like, oh, you click this and click that and then you'll find it and then like, oh my god, like how did you do that? And then I'm just like, youngsters, today millennials, we all know how to kind of work around stuff like that. But I think just seeing them, the older generation, kind of use it, or even just new users that using the product that we create, it just excites me, right?
mhm,
So I think what I'm working towards is kind of going into more customer success roles and product management. But I think I want to just kind of add in a little bit. If your question is going to be like, are you going to continue working in a startup? Then yes, I think I'm definitely going to stick with startups. And if your next kind of add-on point to that as well is going to be like, are you going to stick with a startup which is more matured or early? I think I'm going to say that, you know what? I'm going to still take that risk and join an early stage startup because that just gives me a different rush every single time that I join a new company and a new kind of idea and that struggle, that strive. I love it.
I think you're gonna be a great product manager. Trust me, Reshma. Like if you think about it, users first. A good product manager has to, at some point in the past, interact with a wide range of customers before, and you are in the best position to do it because you talk to different customers every single day. You are doing adoption, you are onboarding new clients, and you are the person who goes out and asks them what is your challenge, right? Like how do you feel using this app? So a good product manager definitely needs a lot of insights on this. So with your past years of experience, I think you're in a very good position. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your life in general. So, out of the three countries you have worked and lived in before, which one do you think it's most favorable for startups?
I've worked in Malaysia because that's where I was born. And then I moved to India when I was 25 in 2015. And then I am here in Singapore today. I think I moved here late 2017, 2018. I can strongly say that India is definitely the most favorable place to work for startups
Mm,
because I think India showed me a whole different world. As you can see or tell already, my parentage is obviously Indian, but we were born in Malaysia, right? So I think that detachment from the country India, a lot of things I didn't know existed,
Mm.
and it was a whole new world for me to kind of discover. Bangalore, where I was placed for 3 years, was actually is actually called the Silicon Valley of India. And honestly, that place is truly living up to its name, right? There's a reason why it's called that way. Allow me to share, because I want to talk about why Bangalore is called that way. Because every third person is a founder for a
Wow.
startup. Every table conversation is a new idea in town. There are obviously so many startup events that you can attend as an entrepreneur. The city is simply vibrant, amazing nightlife, obviously.
Mm.
And lastly, the cream of the crop of talents all over India kind of come in, to Bangalore to work as well, right? So this is where the dreams are made, if I may say. The startups are created here, the ideas are created here, and so on and so forth. I think also above all, Bangalore as a city, right, kind of pushes you to think outside of the box, because the competition is so great.
Mhm.
Any idea that you may have, somebody else may already be 10 steps ahead. I think I speak again earlier about advertising budgets. The advertising budgets in India is simply amazing, right? How, seeing that, how it works or what is being done, who is endorsing it, is simply like mind boggling, right? We are not doing those simple marketing budgets anymore, your campaigns, or we're not talking about the simple ones. We're not talking about like the tens of thousands. We're talking easily into your hundreds of thousands, right? For just one marketing campaign. They're also obviously reaching out to a bigger audience, which is 1.6 billion people in India.
Mhm.
And when you talk about market penetration, they start with like cities, like, just like Bombay, Bangalore, maybe Delhi, and then slowly going into another city, but each city is so big. There's so much work that needs to be done as well. So it's really, really interesting to kind of see where they kind of, move to.
If you could pick a country to live and work in, where will it be?
I can definitely only speak on behalf of the three countries that I've worked in. Hopefully, fingers crossed, a lot more countries to kind of visit and explore in the future. I would have to choose Singapore, right? Why Singapore? Because it is the hub for APAC. A
Mhm.
lot of brands are building their hubs over here, and in APAC, you're able to kind of work on the brand across multiple different countries, right? So that gives you a different perspective. And again, because of the work that I do, I need to talk to multiple different users, different cultural background, different pay scales, different living lifestyles, demographics, basically in general. Singapore allows me to do that, right? We do it obviously over video calls. I may fly to the certain country to kind of talk to the people on ground, and so on and so forth. Singapore is also a melting pot of culture. So you get like from like global colleagues, to like a huge expat market over here. Even you're talking about the locals. We have a lot of Malaysians that are working in Singapore as well. So that kind of helps to bring the dynamics to the country itself, right? And I can't lie, but the money and the currency exchange actually kind of sweetens the deal as well, working in Singapore when you're traveling overseas. So that's something that I just like to add it in as well. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I would like to also ask you a question about like market localization, because you mentioned that working in the hub of APEC, Singapore, you get to work with foreign markets. So Singapore market, whenever startups come in, they usually do a triangle, right? Malaysia, Indonesia. But at the same time, Thailand, Taiwan, they are a big market as well. How much of your customer success role involves tweaking the product for market localization effort?
Um, a very interesting one for sure. Localization is definitely a big topic that we're talking about today, right? Again, it may not have been a conversation that we talked about 10 years ago, but it's
Mhm.
definitely a conversation that we're talking about today. So allow me to explain why, right? Because at that time we were like, oh, just make the app in English and it should work for all markets. But surprisingly, or or like fun fact over here, right, that you need to localize your products, right? A lot of users are actually looking for that connection. They are looking for that familiarity. They are looking for the language that they speak every single
Yeah.
day. And if you cannot do that as a product, they're going to be like, if you can't do that for me, I'm not going to use the application. And it's become a ruthless, like it's as ruthless as that, right?
Yeah.
So when you talk about the older generation, they need their local language, right? Another thing why I say localization is very, very important is because you actually, with localization, you're able to kind of reach out to a different set of audience, right? Not just maybe your internet users, you're also reaching out to the non-internet users to kind of get them to become internet users to use the particular application or product that you have created. So localization actually plays a very, very important role. And with Singapore and with the different backgrounds of people that may work here, right? So we obviously have a lot of like Koreans, Japanese, Indonesians, Malaysians, Singaporeans, as you said, Filipinos working here.
Mhm.
So a lot of these people actually bring that localization that a particular application needs, right? Or a different product needs. I think today, if you a very quick LinkedIn search on jobs as well, right? A lot of the roles today actually ask you for localized language. So like today, if you do a quick LinkedIn search as well, about jobs in Singapore, it's
Mhm.
literally customer success in bracket Korean speaking only, or in bracket Chinese speaking only, in bracket Tagalog speaking only. So this kind of localization is what companies are actually looking out for, or they realize the need for it, right? Today, in terms of content, just making it more following a certain slang,
Yeah.
Instagram stories or your TikTok videos, actually kind of using that particular familiar song, familiar jingle, familiar sentences that a localized market uses actually makes a difference. In Singapore, just things like adding la to a particular sentence makes Singaporean go like, "Ooh, they know our market. They understand us. They're localizing it for us and stuff like that." It might just be a simple thing, right? Maybe another advertising idea that I can, just give you an example at the top of my head is things like, the tissue pack, right? So in
Mhm.
Singapore, it's a huge culture that when you go to a hawker center, you actually kind of chop your spot, right? So you actually kind of like hold your spot, if that
Yeah.
makes sense, right? So with that chop culture, a lot of startups actually started creating like tissue packs with like the word chop. And that's just a culture change that they had to make, which is new packaging for the tissue bags, and that kind of got everybody excited. So now, if I walk around with a branding, a Carousell brand choke packet, and kind of place it at a hawker table, that is like, okay, there's branding there, as
Yeah.
well as it's kind of like penetrated into the culture as well. So it's just a simple thing, simple as that when you talk about localization.
Yeah. Simple as that, but it's a thought that counts.
Yes,
Mhm.
definitely.
So out of the three countries, which country has the best food and best guys?
Two extremes again. Two extremes again for sure, Janelle. Best food and best guys. Okay, I'm gonna break up the question because some people out there gonna think like, oh, Reshma's kind of equating food to guys. No, just kidding. But anyway, just to share, right? I'm a vegetarian since birth.
Yeah.
Hence I can be a little picky with the cuisines that I eat,
Mm.
and the choice of food that I actually choose on a day-to-day basis. But in terms of choosing, where the best food is, I would definitely have to still say Malaysia. I'm not going to forget my roots for sure, but it's also just I grew up eating local cuisine, right? We're talking about nasi lemak to chicken rice, to mee goreng, to your char kway teows, banana leaf, the South Indian meal, and finally just having the best chendol in town, right? A dessert that we all have to have or have to try, right? So um, you know, Malaysia is definitely again very similar to Singapore, but a melting pot of culture, and therefore we have the three main races, which brings all of this different food that I just spoke about. We have the different festivals that we celebrate, which actually allows us to kind of enjoy the different cuisines that they are in town as well, right? So because of these different things, there's obviously a mash in terms of culture. So I may be Indian, but I love eating Chinese and Malay food over maybe just Indian food, or like vice versa as well, right? And that is what makes the country so much more interesting. One thing I can say that I'm very, very thankful that Singapore is very similar to Malaysia. and the food's very similar as well. Yeah. Now let's go into the topic of the best
Yes,
guy.
guys. Yeah.
To avoid that, by the way, but no, I'm not forgetting the question. So I want to say that I actually fancy some beautiful Indian men. Nothing about my roots or anything of that sort. Just they just interest me, I guess, right? No shade to the other races or guys out there, but I like some Indian men. So I want to say that again, with the countries that I've worked for, I definitely have come across some very, very interesting, kind of very approachable guys that I've worked with, kind of hung out with, and stuff like that. I've met some very interesting chaps across all of these three countries. Very smart, people as well. And since we're on the topic of startups, I think I want to also talk about how the men of choice funnily kind of go into that direction a little bit, because
Okay.
those are the conversations that we are talking on a daily basis. So I like a very career driven person. I like a person who is excited that I'm also working in a startup and the conversations are around that. Obviously very techy. I like the tech bit nerdy ones as well. And just finally, I think very passionate, someone who's very, very passionate about tech and app and products. That kind of interests me about a guy as well. So yeah, looking out for someone out there. Yeah.
So is it abs or abs?
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Both.
Let's say both. Let's say both, like abs and abs. Yeah.
Okay, so fancy Indian men out there, if you're in tech, you're a little bit nerdy, you're career driven. Okay, you know who to ping.
Feels like a call out for a guy out there, but you know what? Free advertising. Why not? Let's
Why
go for it.
not? Why not? The queue for guys is gonna be from Singapore to Johor.
Fingers crossed on that.
Okay, cool. All right. Thank you, Reshma, today for sharing your experiences for your personal journey over the past 10 years.
Thanks, Janelle, for inviting me. I was very excited to be presenting some of my thought process today, and I hope that some of you listening in today found it beneficial. Obviously, I hope that it resonated with you as well, just that bit as well, and hopefully to inspire you to kind of make that next career change as well.
And if you guys have any questions, feel free to slide a DM to Reshma. This is her Instagram handle. And
Or find me on LinkedIn, right? Find me on LinkedIn as well.
yeah, so that's her handle too. And there will be 2 more episodes coming up on Reshma's sharing her insights on big startups versus small startups, as well as offering tips to career changes if you're looking to switch to a startup.
So I'm going to do Janelle a favor and I'm going to say hit the like button, share this whole content with your friends, and obviously subscribe to the channel, right? Help Janelle to build her next dream as well. And hoping for more success.
Awesome. So see you guys in the next episode.